Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hey, hello there. A slightly less energetic Lynn Cullen here with you today. I'm trying to rouse myself here. I've been up for a long time. When you hear the guys drop the newspapers on your front door and you're on your porch, you know you're in trouble because they come, and I'd already been up for hours. Anyway, so all that is not to complain. All that is simply to say, I don't know if the noggin is fully operative this morning. It sure doesn't feel like it. But anyway, I got lots to talk about. If I am incapable of quite articulating my thoughts, perhaps you will help me out. So yesterday I drove by the Holy Family Institute on my way to someplace else. And I drove by the little gift shop that's right across the street from them, all on Ohio River Boulevard in lovely Emsworth. And this gift shop, which I think I had mentioned to you, I've always seen years and years and years and thought, geez, I wonder what's in there. Maybe I should stop. But I'm always zoom, 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 and I've never stopped. And the only good thing that came out of reading about the xenophobic reaction of so many in Emsworth to the fact that the good nuns of the Holy Family Institute were going to take in some of these young children from Central America who risked their lives to come to our welcoming arms. See, now I don't remember where that sentence started. I know where There were too many clauses. And then I think what I wanted to say is, the guy, it turns out, who runs that little gift shop was quoted in the newspaper, and he was one of the more xenophobic quotes. These children, why, they're dangerous. Why, we don't know. Our throats will get slit in our beds. They could be carrying disease. Members of, And I thought, well, thank God I don't anymore. So when I breezed by his gift shop yesterday, at least I thought, I gave him the finger. Not that he saw it. I almost thought, I should stop in just to tell him what I think of him. And then I thought, nah. And so I just gave him the finger and kept going. Anyway. So they did have a meeting in Emsworth, in fact, just hours after I drove by and gave him the finger, in which the good sisters at Holy Family Institute did listen. See, if you guys do you watch the local news? Because that would have been on the local TV news, and I don't. And so maybe you saw some of it. And then I think you probably know more than I do, because all I know is what I read in the newspaper in the morning. But I do know that prior to the meeting, a lot of emails had gone out to people on the other, more welcoming side of the ledger who support what Holy Family Institute is is doing. And so I knew it was not going to be some one-sided, screaming fest of lunatics. And in fact, from the account in the paper, it was not. There were probably more people in support of Holy Family than against, is my guess. And consequently, that tends to dampen down the xenophobes a bit. And it was, from all indications, a relatively cordial exchange of ideas. But here, for instance, is one of the women who got up and said what so many Americans do believe. Her name is Anastasia. I always wanted a name like that, a name that sounded tragic and regal. Ah, yes, there goes Anastasia. Anyway, her name's Anastasia Jacoby, which doesn't quite go together. She got the wrong last name or the wrong first name. Anastasia, anyway, said that some of the children crossing the border worked for deadly drug gangs. And she was really worried about having these deadly drug gang members at Holy Family having an impact on the sweet little apple-cheeked children of the community. Here's her direct quote. "I have great concerns for their safety." Not the little brown-skinned ones, the little apple-cheeked white ones. "I have great concerns for their safety when you're dealing with, child soldiers." So that's how Anastasia has come to see these desperate children risking their lives to come by themselves to a strange country, across 2-3 other countries. She sees them as child soldiers who are going to hurt her. Where the hell do these people get their information? Look no further than the story right atop the story about the meeting last night. Headline: State legislators cite risks of illegal migrant children. Aha, I thought. And as soon as I saw the headline, I said to myself, it's just a little game I play with myself. How long into the article before you hit the name Daryl Metcalf? Actually, it took a little longer than I thought. It took about 4 paragraphs in, and there is, of course, Daryl Metcalf. And it says here that, hello?
Lynn, it's Tom Sokolowski.
Mr. Sokolowski, it's not enough for you to be on the program tomorrow?
Well, I had to come in today because you're talking about a very interesting issue. And before you get into total high dudgeon, as you are wont to do, and you do so brilliantly, I just wanted to throw in the fact that, like the majority of the people at that meeting, or at least what I read in the newspaper, I think the majority of your listeners and the majority of Pittsburghers probably agree. And money is what counts for nonprofit organizations. And the Holy Family Institute is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So I think for those of people who agree with Linda Young-Kusky, the director of it, who I must say she was in my class of Leadership Pittsburgh 17 years ago, a good gal, albeit a nun, not a good gal, but vote with your pocketbook.
Yeah.
Write a check.
Yeah.
And so they maybe can take even more of these children in. And, I think one of the things I thought was great in the article is that she said, well, I screwed up because I really should have called the mayor to let him know, because she knew this would have been, she should have known this was going to be a fire keg among some of his constituency.
Right.
But she admitted that, but I think send the check.
I think that's a brilliant idea.
And it's 501c3, which means it is tax deductible. And everyone who's in your program, and the majority, are rather well-heeled.
They are not. What do you
Well,
think?
a good bit of them, I bet, are.
I don't get that impression.
Are healed enough, even though they may wear an itinerant pair of flip-flops when no one's looking. But everyone can use a tax deduction, and I think this is really the way to vote with them. I mean, I think Holy Family Institute could have their coffers jingling and tingling.
You know,
So do it.
Thank you. It's absolutely true. And not only that, since we have been told by the Supreme Court of the United States that money is speech. If you didn't get to speak at the event last night, then your money can speak for you in this very, very smart way. I mean, that's great. Good idea. Thank you.
So have a good program, darling. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Goodbye. Bye. So you think, where do these people get this child soldiers diseased, that these kids are violent and they're like a horde? And you realize that anyone who falls for this kind of crap is a xenophobe. There's a reason there's a word for it, because it is one of those afflictions that we imperfect humans are capable of acquiring. And this country, which bases its very reason for being on providing a place for those who are desperate. This country who openly advertises itself and then puffs up about its extraordinary exceptionalism is one of the few countries that actually, from day one, was an in-gatherer of immigrants. There's not a one of us, unless we are really Native American, or I suppose we would have to add the descendants of Africans brought here against their will. There is not a one of us who doesn't have in our direct lineage someone who, in hope, desperation, fear of their very lives, came to these shores, to this country. And if you know your history, many of those grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents of ours were often met in the same way that some of these busloads of little children were met by the Americans who are already there. You don't belong. You are diseased. You are less than us. This is what has always been said. Any one of you of Irish descent, Italian descent, Jewish descent, you were all deemed subhuman. You were all thought to be carrying disease. You were one step above vermin. Now, were the xenophobes who did that to your relatives, were they right? Xenophobes are next to never right. Till my dying day, I will never comprehend the willingness, the need some people have to be fearful, to be scared all the time. Caller, hi.
How you doing today?
Oh, I'm just hunky-dory. How are you?
The only thing I got to say about what you say about the immigrants coming in here years and years ago, the situation was different than it is now.
And why is that?
In the way of how many people we needed. We have a lot of people in this country right now. So let's open the borders, let them all in here and become China. That's what we should do, maybe. I don't know. I don't know the answer, but it's like this. If they want to guard the borders, they need to use the military. If they want to open the borders, open them. Those children are already here. I think they should be taken care of, and that's the end of it. But my big concern is if them kids can come in this country that easily, imagine the terrorists that's got in here already.
Yeah.
And you might laugh at that, or I don't know what you feel about that, but that's my concern about it. But when you already have this many people in this country, why do you just keep letting people in this country?
What?
There comes a time when you get full and taper
You think
off
we're
for a while.
full? You think we're
Wait
full?
5-10 years, maybe let some more in. You can't just keep letting people come in and come in and come in.
Well, believe me, we haven't, and we don't. We've got quotas. We've got a nightmare of an immigration policy. We torture people, some people. Before we beg for certain people from certain countries, and we definitely don't want other people from other countries. But let me tell you something I've always believed absolutely with my heart and soul, that the people who have the courage, imagine yourself doing what any of these kids have done, or even some of the older ones. Imagine going into some void, knowing that you might be killed, knowing that you might be raped if you're a woman, knowing that if you're a child you might become a sex slave, knowing that you might die in the desert, but needing to get to this place where you know you've got a chance. And those people, and I like to think that describes my grandparents, and describes your ancestors as well. The people who are willing to leave a nation, their families, everything they knew, the language they knew, the culture they knew, to go through hell to get to this place. Though I think that's why this country was, and sometimes still is, so great. Because we're made up of the bravest of the brave.
See, that's not my argument. I agree with all that.
Well,
I just don't think the opportunity is there for the people who are already here, so you bring more people
Let
in.
them...
We have more problems to begin with, so we just add to the problems.
No,
That's all we do.
I don't think so. I really don't think so.
Because the wages go down. They've already proven that. Every time you let immigrants in, wages go down.
The wages are going down not because of these poor brown-skinned people crossing our southern border. The wages have gone down because of the globalization of the economy. So exactly. So you don't have to have people coming to our country to depress wages. They live all over the globe. The wages are depressed.
To it.
It doesn't. It would add to it if it.
My argument.
Okay. Well, I think you sound like a fair-minded person. I know you are. I hope you revisit this a little bit because I just don't think your argument holds up. I really don't. Anyway,
Okay.
I appreciate
Okay.
All right,
We'll
you.
see.
Bye. So where do these people get this crap? Well, we know Fox News, Rush Limbaugh, and it turns out that there were, how many? 21 members of the Pennsylvania state legislature who swallowed all this swill. Now, it won't surprise you to know that all 21 members were, of course, of the Republican persuasion. And they got together and penned a letter to Pennsylvania's congressional delegation in Washington, D.C., to our 2 senators and whatever paltry number of congresspeople we have left. Or I should say congressmen, because I don't think we have any. Do we have any women anymore? I don't know. So they wrote of their concern that these children were being let into the state and could threaten, get this, could threaten public safety. Okay. Imagine these 21 Republican members of the state legislature, their knees knocking, quavering in fear, because they know that, God, 386 children are now residing in Pennsylvania who may, in fact, threaten us. What? So, here. You want the quote? I'll give you some from their letter. Given the demographics of these young immigrants and their home countries, as if you're from El Salvador, you are then subhuman. They're coming from El Salvador. Okay. Given the demographics of these young immigrants and their home countries, and the fact that thousands of unaccompanied children were taken into custody by U.S. Customs and Border Protection between October 2013, we believe that there is some risk that a portion of these young people could be affiliated with criminal gangs. We are writing today to ask that you give serious consideration to this potential safety concern and that you take action to protect the terrified and innocent citizens of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Of course, Daryl Metcalf signed. So, it's not just Anastasia and the owner of the gift shop in Emsworth that have had their heads poisoned by the garbage spewed by right-wing media. But people who sit in Harrisburg, who have power, who actually supposedly represent our interests, and think that they are representing our interests by being terrified of terrified children. I've often wondered why some people seem to have absolutely no empathy. But quite clearly, some people don't. It is something that they are constitutionally incapable of mustering. Tom was right. I'll write a check today. Write a check today. Holy Family Institute. What a wonderful, wonderful group of women are in that place. And in fact, one of apparently the most powerful speakers at this public meeting last night was a woman who, as a child, as a terrified child from Nicaragua at the time, came here and was taken in by Holy Family Institute. And she said last night, it's because of what you did for me that I am the person I am today. I am the face of the children who are coming into this country now. I came during a war. It was not my choice. This is your chance to tell a child you are worthwhile and you deserve to have a better life. She sees a child who is worthwhile and deserves to have a better life. And the people who listen to Fox News see a diseased scourge of 8-year-old drug cartel members. It's mind-blowing. Ray was moved by Tom's call. He writes, back in the day, I bought some of the best dope in Emsworth. They don't need no immigrants to peddle drugs in that shithole, says Ray. Oh, shit. Oh, Ray, you're something. These nuns taught me in Lawrenceville and started as a missionary effort from Poland to serve the immigrants here in Pittsburgh. This is how many of the orders of nuns came over here. That is correct, right? So a bunch of Polish sisters would come over to the U.S., immigrants all, but for the purpose of serving other Polish Catholics who had already come. And they provided much of the education, the social services, all that kind of. They built the hospitals. They built the first hospitals. God, when you think of what these nuns did. Most of the Catholic clergy, writes Ray, in Pittsburgh arrived as immigrant support of some sort. As the Irish say, and I can't pronounce this. I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. As the Irish say, muck salach, muck. I don't know what that means. Anyway, Ray finishes with, yeah, send the nuns $1 or $2. They'll know what to do with it. They won't waste it. You don't have to go to like Charity Navigator or one of those online things that gives you the ratings of various 501c3s, some of whom, you know, with nonprofit status like that big UPMC that aren't really charities, and they still go begging. The nuns use every cent and do not enrich themselves. Because they know, first of all, that's not what they're doing it for. But secondly, they know that's not what you sent them money to do. It will go to where you want it to go. To help these children. Oh, man. I'll tell you what. I did work myself up into such a lather that I'm almost awake. And I do want, can we, how would you like to listen to a PSA? Can we just take a break, huh?
I have to set it up.
What do you mean you have to set it up? You mean now you don't expect ever for me to take a break, huh?
No.
Okay, well tell me when you're set up.
All right.
Oh my God, did you read the story? I hate to traffic and gossip, it's not good and I do it. But it's like a huge story in the Post-Gazette today. Who is the most recognizable lawyer in town? Huh? When I say lawyer, Jess.
Edgar Snyder.
Edgar Snyder, she said. My son, when he was like 6 years old, once saw Edgar Snyder at our synagogue, and he said, "Mom, look!" And then he came out with the line. What's the line? We want, unless you get, what is the line?
We don't get money.
We don't get,
No.
we don't get a,
Unless we get money for you.
we don't get a red cent until, no, yeah, unless we get money for you. You don't pay us a blah, blah, blah. Well, see what a great line that is? We all remember it. But my son did. He knew it. So one of the biggest, and I feel bad because I have a sense of him, actually. I know a lot of good work this guy does in the community. But, there's a price to be paid for celebrity. There's a price to be paid for celebrity, and man, he's paying it in spades today. Let's get that PSA, and then we'll come back.
To Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
Download the brand new CP Haps app and find out what's going on in Pittsburgh. It's the fun and free app that puts the most popular events at your fingertips. Text events to 77948 to download now and register to win tickets to Kennywood, Sandcastle, and Idlewild. The CP Haps app brought to you by Pittsburgh City Paper.
Hey, Billy, want to go to the state fair?
Yeah!
Well, you can't.
Huh?
Well, you see, Billy, when you throw away money on wasted electricity, you throw away everything you could have done with it. But now your parents are becoming energy efficient. They could save hundreds of dollars a year and take you to the fair next year.
I want to go now.
I know you do. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Energy and the Ad Council.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
So, see, now wasn't that nice? A nice public service announcement. And don't you, what was it about? I wasn't listening. The Something Council.
Yeah.
All right.
I just picked I picked one out of the list. There was a city paper ad in there, too.
There was a city paper ad? Well,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Don't want to bite the hand that doesn't feed me. All right. All right, so there's this it starts on page 1, but then absolutely takes up an entire page inside. Oh, my God. This is the longest story I ever saw. And it turns out, and I was shocked by this, that Edgar Snyder and his wife, Sandy, are estranged and involved in one nasty divorce. And it got nastier yet in that he alleged that she defamed him.
That's bullshit. No
What do you mean
way.
that's bullshit? What?
I don't know. Keep going.
Well, yeah. He took such umbrage at what she apparently was spreading that he filed suit, a defamation suit. Anyway, make a long story short, the suit has been dropped. He wouldn't have won it anyway because he's too much of a public figure. I don't think you can. I mean, that was an emotional error on Edgar's part, I think. Because by doing that, he ended up drawing more attention to her defamation than she ever would have been able to. She accused him of stealing millions of dollars from her.
Really?
Yeah, he says it is such bullshit. She said, no, it's not. Anyway, they are at each other's throats. But the funniest thing is you're reading this stuff. They've been married for a long time. I know him enough to nod my head. There is a picture of them in the paper. Says it was taken at the Fairmont Hotel at an event in June. And I wish I could show you the happy couple, Jazz. Do you see how happy those two are? Is that not really? Do you see? Yeah, they look like two really happy people. Then you read the article, and it turns out that by the time that picture was taken, they had already agreed to separate. And they were dividing up property and stuff, and something happened that must have pissed her off. I don't know. Blah, 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 blah. But that this picture was taken, and they look so happy. And now they want to kill each other, apparently. This story goes on into such detail, your eyes will roll back in your head. And a lot of it, you start to think, I don't need to know this. But you see, exactly because Edgar Snyder is so recognizable, the PG and any other media know that a lot of people get a kick out of reading this. And here am I, exacerbating the situation too. Now, there are legal issues that are really involved here about whether the judge who allowed all their divorce stuff to be sealed, like they did with Richard Mellon Scaife originally. There's something about some people saying she should have recused herself. Her brother's done work for Edgar Snyder and blah, 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 and she shouldn't have blah, 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 blah. I mean, in that regard, it's not particularly interesting anyway. But, oh, my God. Now, the thing that blew me away is the picture of the two of them. Like, you would think that is the happiest older couple you ever saw in your life. And when that picture was taken, they were already on the outs. It is well known that Sandy, the wife, is the genius behind the marketing of Edgar Snyder. It is she who came up with that line, neither Jess or I can remember. It is she who figured out that they would do this saturation and create this persona and blah, 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 and man, did it work. I feel, you think you're having a bad day today? You could be Edgar Snyder. Or his wife. Although, I don't know. I don't know. Wow. Man, I got to tell you, there are certain communities where this is what used to be called the water cooler talk. Yeah, this is the big story today. And we don't do you until we get money for you. And we don't charge you. And we, I don't know. Hell, getting old and having your brain cells dying on you right in the middle of a show. I want to say this about the Middle East. If you're having trouble,
There's never a
fee unless we get money for you.
Yes. Okay. That was bothering me.
Yeah.
I needed to know.
There's never a fee unless we. Well, there's a nice sort of poetic thing going on there, too. There's never a fee unless we get money for you. It even scans. That's good. I think he owes her $2 million just for that. Maybe that's what she's saying. I don't know. So anyway, what was I? I think this is worthy of just being mentioned, and it seemed to be almost buried in the paper. Do you know that the city is no longer suing UPMC for taxes? No, you didn't know either, did you? I didn't know either. Now, I know that the judge said, wait a minute, city, you didn't file that right. Because, in fact, it is true, UPMC does not have any employees. Those 100 million people that do seem to work there work for subsidiaries of it. Those are so if you want to sue, you got to sue like practically every hospital individually. Okay. But then it turns out that our new mayor, Bill Peduto, has been having discussions on a pretty regular basis with the scary people in the administration of UPMC. And he's been talking to them about a lot of things, like the horrible wages they pay their lowliest employees, most of whom are residents of the city, and who themselves end up having to pay taxes. And he's talking to them about, don't you really think you should do really more for the community? And what Peduto said is it was really hard to try to diplomatically get this dealt with, while we were also, in fact, holding a gun to UPMC's head. And, in fact, they obligingly were, then holding a gun at our heads. So he said it was an impediment to a more cordial, trusting relationship that he was trying to build. I suppose, what the hell, if he can get some money out of him. If Peduto can get money out, if they had to pay taxes, they'd pay like something over $200 million a year in property taxes. I think. Yeah. So if he can get any money out of those awful people, God bless them. Oh, the Middle East. Didn't I say the Middle East and then ended up someplace else? So the Middle East, if you want to, it's so depressing. I recommend not watching because it just adds, it does. I've said this a million times. It harms you. And the anxiety it produces is like, there's nothing really to alleviate it, or it's not like you can do something. I don't think. I don't know. Wringing of hands, tearing of hair, beating of breasts, and none of it does anything. So, I was thinking that if you wanted to see something just brilliant about the United States' role in the turmoil of the Middle East. So I ain't just talking Gaza. I'm talking Gaza. I ain't just talking Israel. I'm talking Israel. I'm talking Egypt and Jordan and Qatar and Iran and Iraq. I'm talking all of that. And you want it put in some measure of perspective. You won't get a better tutorial than watching Jon Stewart on The Daily Show. I am not kidding. He is on top of this. He is laceratingly on point and funny. And somehow taking in this reality and being able to laugh every once in a while is much more palatable. But last night's show in particular, which I'm sure will re-air later today, if not at 8 o'clock tonight, is that one? On Comedy Central, is give yourself a treat. Give yourself a treat. He's got it down, as he so often does. More than all the the stuffy experts and talking heads who just keep saying the same goddamn things and nothing. You don't get anywhere watching. You don't learn anything. You just hear, he said, she said, he said, she said, until your head wants to explode. He cuts through an awful lot of crap. Brilliantly. And that's what we've come to. The best news you can get is a comedy show. And I'm not joking. Speaking of a comedy show and education, I watched a show I had never seen before last night at my son's behest. And I could not stop thanking him for introducing me to what has now to be one of my favorite shows ever. Some of you are ahead of me here. Some of you say, well, of course, Lynn. Where have you been? And maybe some of you, I guess you have to have a certain temperament to love. It also is Comedy Central. It's on Tuesday nights at 10 o'clock. Mark it down and watch it next week. Or watch reruns. It is called Drunk History.
Yes.
It might be the most ingenious show I have ever seen. Whoever dreamt this up. Hysterical and educational. I learned so much watching this last night and laughing I was laughing till bubbles were coming out of my, please, Drunk History. Comedy Central. Let me give you the sort of the way it's hard to explain. I don't know where they get these guys. Are these guys comedians by nature?
Comedians, yeah.
They're kind of,
People that are on.
yeah, that are
Oh,
on.
yeah,
They're all like guys who are by nature funny. But what they agree to do is clearly to first educate themselves about some event in history. So they really do their homework. And then the next stage, and I don't think you really see this stage as much, they are made to get drunk. Really, really drunk. And then the cameras roll as they attempt to tell the bit of history that they know. So the narration is from a drunk, and it is brilliant. Brilliant! You don't believe me. I want so badly to do this show. Would they ever let me? I'll say, I could do this. I would do it. I would do it. Because I think when I get drunk, I maintain enough of my head that I could really do this. And then while they're telling the story drunkenly, they also have actors who act out what it is. Jeez. Let me tell you something. I have something to live for now. Next Tuesday night, 10 o'clock, Comedy Central. So, let me tell you something of what I learned. I'm not kidding. Have you ever heard? There's two guys I learned about. One, a judge, a white judge in Charleston, South Carolina, right? Charleston, South Carolina. And the year's about 1951, so it's really during the segregation era. His name was Judge J. Wayties, W-A-T-I-E-S. Did you ever hear of him? I never heard of him. So watching this thing, I learned something, and it was a fantastic story. This judge left his wife, a good Southern belle, and married a loudmouth liberal Yankee woman. She's always talking in his ear. She's living down there, and she cannot for the life of her figure out why black people are treated like they are. I mean, she says, it is so outrageous. It is so outrageous. And she said, we're gonna meet a black couple. We're having to. Anyway, she forces her husband, who's just madly in love with her, into befriending some black people in a social setting. It was really awkward at first, and then he got to be really close friends with some black people in town. This judge, Jay Wades, ends up sitting on a 3-judge panel. The year 1951. The case is called Briggs versus Elliott. And it is about the fact that segregation meant that black children were not being educated as well as white kids. This is before Brown versus Board of Education. And the lawyer arguing for the plaintiff was Thurgood Marshall. Briggs versus Elliott. Thurgood Marshall lost that case. The powers that be won it the vote 2-1. The one, Judge J. Waities, who wrote a 20-page dissent, which our drunken narrator summed up this way. Well, like basically it said that, I mean, everyone in Charleston is an asshole. And that segregation sucks. And it's wrong. And blah, 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 blah. Turns out that Brown versus Board of Education, which comes in what, 56, when the Supreme Court ruled in that baby, and Thurgood Marshall won that one, almost every one of their, what do you call that when they write a judgment, liberally cited Judge J. Waities' dissent, because he had so brilliantly put it all out there. I never heard of this guy. And then another one, another piece of history I never heard of. Have you ever heard of a guy named Robert Smalls? He was a black guy. He was the son of the slave owner, the plantation owner, and whatever his slave of the evening was. And the plantation owner did have a soft spot for his little black child, and he sent him off to get more of an education somewhere, or this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And this Robert Smalls ends up on board a ship, a battleship, a Confederate battleship. I believe it was called the CSS Plantation. And he's part of the crew. And one night, some guy said, hey, while we're docked here, we're going out and going to get, get some prostitutes and have a little fun. And so they left the ship. And then some of the other white officers, they left the ship. And Robert Smalls looks around, and all he sees are, well, black people like himself manning the ship. And he says to one of his other black crew members, hey, go get your wife and children. Go get my wife and children. Yeah, I guess I don't know if they grabbed all the wives and children. Brought them back to the ship. And they friggin' took off. He has stolen a Confederate battleship. He has put his family and other families on board. The ship is filled with these black refugees, and they've got to run the entire southern coast past 5 Confederate forts and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And he manages somehow, God, what guts, to pull it off. Fort Sumter was the last one he had to get by. He gets by it. And then, as he's approaching what would be Union territory, up comes his big ship flying the American flag, and it's coming right at his ship. And he realizes, oh, my God, they think I'm a Confederate battleship because, well, I am a Confederate battleship. Oh, no. He says to his wife, did you bring a sheet? The wife had brought a sheet. They put that sheet up waving this white flag. He's screaming at the other guy, "Where are you? Don't shoot!" He makes it back. They're not shot at. They all come north. He ends up meeting President Lincoln. He ends up helping the Union set up to recruit African Americans to fight for the Union cause. I mean, this is as much as I remember. And remember, I'm getting the story from a drunk. It is the funniest damn show I've ever seen. Drunk history. Comedy Central, Tuesdays, 10. I never heard of either of those guys. Robert Smalls. Why don't I know? Robert Smalls, yeah. And Judge Jay Wades. And, you might say, well, these drunks might have gotten some of the facts wrong. Yeah, maybe they got some of the facts wrong. But the reality is the general story, you betcha, is right. And you've learned something. Something we should know. I'm beginning to think we should get all our history teachers drunk before class.
Mine was.
Yeah, because, history it's just a gold mine of unbelievable stories. And when they're brought down to one person's story, it can be so edifying. It can be so, you are sitting on the edge of your seat, right? I'm trying to see if there's something else I'm supposed to be talking about. I don't think so. The news. Oy, oy, oy. It rained in Waynesburg. Are you aware of that thing? That on a certain date, what is it? Well, whatever yesterday was. So it'd be July 29th. It has rained in Waynesburg on July 29th. Do they ever tell you? They call it Rain Day there. Tradition started in the late 1800s when a farmer remarked, "Well, it's certainly going to rain tomorrow because, it's my birthday, and my birthday always has rain." And so they start marking it. And now it's a big annual thing. In past years, Bing Crosby, Muhammad Ali, and Donald Trump have placed wagers. It did rain there yesterday, a little bit. 10. It doesn't matter. If someone feels a drop somewhere, that's a rain. That's a rain. 10:57 a.m., the 114th time rain has fallen during the day in the 141-year history. That put Waynesburg on the map. It rains almost every July 29th. As a reporter for WTAE television, I was sent. I did my obligatory Waynesburg story, Rain Day. For the life of me, I can't remember if it rained that day. I don't know. How I got sent to that and managed to avoid Punxsutawney Phil, I don't know. But it is really one of the few things that I do brag about in my entire television career here in Pittsburgh that I avoided covering Groundhog Day. I don't know how I did that. Because I was the reporter I was the feature reporter. If you're going to send some poor soul up to cover that stupidity, it would be someone who does the odd story, The old lady in Wilkinsburg who grew 80-pound zucchini. That's my story. Call Cullen. I loved those stories. I really did. But I did not want, to me, Punxsutawney Phil is the most, there's something that just, I react with such, I hate the whole idea of it.
You like the movie?
The movie is a classic. There's no doubt about it. But I hate the idea. I hate these silly men in their top hats. I hate that they terrorize this poor animal who doesn't have a clue what the hell is going on. I hate that people come from near and far. What is people's need to enjoy such silliness? Isn't that funny? I was saying yesterday, I don't understand why people enjoy being terrified. Now I'm saying I don't understand why people enjoy being ridiculous. I must not be a very regular person. I don't know. So I just don't get it. I'm sorry. I think we're done. How the hell did that happen? Anyway, it happened, and so tomorrow, Mr. Sokolowski joins us. He who has already, I can tell, given to the Holy Family Institute to help those children. And you and I still have to sit down, write that out, okay? A check. Do it. I promise I will. Okay. Done. Tomorrow. Have a great day.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.